to She Plays the podcast. I'm super stoked to be joined today by Helen Eifert, who is the founder, manager, player, and captain of the Arizona Sidewinders, also an early organizer and team representative of the League Development Committee of the Western Ultimate League. Super excited to have you here, Helen. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So I'd love to chat just a little bit about, all of the roles that you have on the Arizona Sidewinders. Maybe what about the sport of ultimate that people might not know? The fact that there are a couple leagues in the country is really exciting. So tell us, I guess, maybe let's start with how you first got into the sport of ultimate.
Sure. So I started playing ultimate in high school. I used to play women's lacrosse, and when I was a junior in high school, I did not make the varsity team. Lacrosse was a pretty intense sport at my school, so it wasn't possible for me to play junior varsity as an upperclassman. So I was kind of left without my spring sport. And the only team at my school that didn't have any formal tryouts was the ultimate team, which at the time was a sort of informal men's ultimate team that had existed for the past 5 or 6 or 10 years or something around that, but it had been primarily men's. And so I had some friends who played on the team. I picked up with them sort of for the end of that season and then played with them my senior year. And I was the only woman on that team for that year. So that was sort of my introduction into the sport. I completely fell in love with it, and then kind of continued seeking it out in college and beyond. My college experience was not like a very formal team, but that led me to pursue higher level in Canada, which was close to where I lived for college. And so from there, I kind of got into the competitive side of ultimate, and I've been hooked ever since. So
that's awesome. And I think what people don't maybe realize is there's like a Team USA for ultimate. Like it is a very competitive sport, a little, higher up or out of schools. I know a lot of colleges now have a lot of teams and stuff like that. And maybe even high schools now having.
Oh yeah. They're concentrated to a couple cities, but there's definitely a high school scene, a youth scene. They're looking very, very good as of late. Awesome. So it's really exciting to see the sport growing.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, going from, in your high school, having it as an option is amazing. What was that process like of, learning a new sport? Was it just, oh, I'm an athlete, it's just a couple different sets of rules? Like, what was the thing that was most surprising to you maybe about the sport?
I think I didn't expect how hard it was going to be. I had played everything growing up. I played in all the rec leagues, so I was familiar with all the field sports. My main high school sport was actually alpine ski racing, so I was dabbling in like some other random individual sports as well. So I think the thing that stood out the most was, lacrosse is a intense field sport. I had a pair of cleats that I think I wore for the 8 years that I played since my feet stopped growing. And when I switched to playing ultimate, I don't think I've kept a pair of cleats for more than a season. So just the intensity of cuts and I think that the pace of the game just absolutely blew me away. I used to dread running the mile run to try out for those formal sports, and I became like a much bigger runner getting into ultimate. So it's basically football style cuts at the pace of soccer. So it's a lot of it's intense, and I think that shocked me the most. It was like, oh wow, what a really incredible field sport.
Yeah. What would you say, on average, how much are people running in a game or match?
If it's it depends on your position. If you're more of a thrower, you're likely to do less. If you're on a defensive line, you're likely to run more. I'm a defensive cutter, so I get some of the highest volumes. In a intense game, it could be up to 4 or 5 miles.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Well, what would you say? I mean, so yes, that's a very taxing sport, right? Like that's a taxing, is it matches or games? I should know that.
Games.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say just about the sport in general? Physically is the most demanding thing and mentally the most demanding thing?
Physically, I think the intensity of cutting and the volume of cut, it's definitely, especially for women who have sort of that higher risk of knee injury. It's a high risk sport for those types of knee injuries, and so it's hard on the body. I think the format of the sport and its current way of being played, standard is tournament weekends, and so it's a lot of volume all at once, where you're playing, like I said, maybe up to 4 or 5 miles in a game. You're playing maybe 3 or 4 games a day for 2 to 3 days, and that adds up. That's one of the nice things about the pro format, is as we start to move towards having professional ultimate in those settings, then you're only playing a game and it's timed instead of to a point cap. So it feels kind of like 2 ordinary games combined, but you're not playing 4 games in a row. You're playing 1 game a week, or maybe a double header. But I think generally it's a demanding sport in terms of volume.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. What about mentally? What are the mind games people are playing?
Mentally, honestly, it's I think the sport is still quite political because it's still growing. And so I think finding the right space, getting to play at the level that you want, because it's still sparse where you can access that high level, and sort of that side of it, I think, kind of seeps into playing sometimes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sport that, probably doesn't have a lot of national recognition, right? Again, like people not knowing there's a Team USA or, competitions among countries, that is hard to get, like the recognition and then enough people in a city to make it happen. So you're a part of starting the Western Ultimate League. Can you talk a little bit about why that came to be, and where, Western United States, but where you guys are located?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So in 2018, I believe, there were a couple teams in the East who started doing these professional showcases, and I had played in a community that was one of those early forming teams in Austin, Texas. And so when they were starting, they sort of banded together and created this first ever women's league for Ultimate. In their first official season was in 2019, and that's the Premier Ultimate League. And at that time, I had recently moved to Arizona, noticed that the women in Arizona were incredibly talented, incredible athletes, and they were all playing on mixed gender teams. And so there was really nothing that brought them all together to like really see how fantastic the women were as a single gender unit. And I wanted to pull them all together, and doing that in a pro setting seemed like a good way to avoid pulling them away from their team allegiances that they sort of already had. And so I had started polling the Arizona community in 2019 around the start of that initial league about starting a team to join that league originally. Meanwhile, while that team was having its first year, there were some organizers in cities in the West who were kind of doing the same sort of showcase, testing the waters. And we all kind of found out about each other and started chatting, and we were interested in pooling our resources so that we can all sort of work together in applying to joining the Premier Ultimate League for the 2020 season. And ultimately, 3 became 5, 5 became 7. All of a sudden, we have 7 cities interested in hosting professional women's ultimate teams. And so by the time we applied to the Premier Ultimate League, we were sort of a bit demanding of, we'd like all 7 of us to be joined as a unit so that we have local competitors, so we don't have to travel all the way to the East Coast for most of our games. At the year 2 of a new league, that was a little bit too big of an expansion for them. And so naturally that was not a viable path. So instead, we had already built up all this momentum working together as a group, that we decided, well, we've been operating pretty okay as our unit here, so we might as well just start our own league. And we made it sort of just a Western Ultimate League, again, with the ultimate goal of combining at some point sort of football, NFC, AFC style. You have your separate divisions. And so our 7 organizers just kind of got together, started the Western Ultimate League, and ultimately hired on a new board and And we had our first season in 2022 this year, since 2020 got pushed off because of the pandemic. So we've been working since 2020, but that's how it all kind of came to be.
Yeah, well, that's so fascinating and so cool to take it upon yourselves to find what's working in your community and see what you can do. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, well, maybe they do. I'm not trying to say anyone's naive or anything. I mean, like to make a pro league work, it takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money because you're traveling. And so, yeah, to travel West Coast to East Coast every weekend would be insane. So yeah, what are some of the challenges of starting a league, starting, again, a sport that's not in the top 5 probably in the country, and just a women's league? What are some of the things that you guys have had to overcome?
Yeah, 3 things. Money is definitely a big one. It's expensive, and I don't think people realize how much money is required to also do what is not typical for the sport of ultimate at this point, which is pay for players' expenses and pay them as athletes themselves. In the other formats of the sport, you're paying your way the entire time, so it's expensive and it's not sustainable. And so being able to pay players what they deserve, I think that's really difficult, in getting the funding to do that, on top of all the season expenses. And legitimacy is also, I think, a huge hurdle for us, and it's combined, because not only is it a legitimacy issue of our sport, which we're still contending with the one with the baskets, or are there dogs involved? It's getting better. People definitely have more of an awareness of ultimate as the sport that it is, kind of at its highest level, but it's taken time, and we're still I think working around those legitimacy stereotypes, that combined with the legitimacy of being a women's sport, right? So that's kind of a dual battle there, and that influences the ability to get money and sponsors and buy-in from outside of the ultimate community. And then the third thing is people. It is really, really, really hard to get the people and the bodies needed to get all of the work that needs to get done. I mean, you could tell by the many roles that I hold, right? So just getting enough people, and really it's while we have a lot of support, getting people who are willing to put in the work tends to really fall on the women. Like the women who want to play, who want the opportunity, they tend to be the ones who are willing to put in the work. And I'm hoping that we can move past that and have more people outside of the players willing to step up and contribute in a bigger way.
Yeah, because like you said, all your roles, you're founder, manager, player, captain, you're also a PhD student. You told me before we started recording, you do all of this league work for free. You don't get paid to do it yet, which I know is a new league. It'll take some time to get sponsorships. But yeah, it really is. It's a passion project, but it's
absolutely, it's
hard when you're also trying to find legitimacy, and you're legit, it's a hard balance. I get it. I totally get it. What are there ways people, fans, whoever can contribute to the league? Do you have like adopt player programs or anything like that?
Yeah, one of the really popular methods of fundraising in the ultimate community is sort of this like sponsor player type of like jersey fundraiser, where people will like buy jerseys and kind of sponsor a player in that way. Or like our team specifically, we have investors who are community members who are really passionate about showcasing our community of women. And so we definitely have sort of individuals and more of like a community level buy-in. I think the ultimate community is really excited about women's pro. And that's helpful. It's trying to build out around that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. But it is exciting. Like anyone who's ever wanted to work front office of a professional team, like here's your opportunity. Like there's so many, I'm sure there's so many roles to take on, and it'll get there, it'll get to where they're paid positions, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Right.
Hopefully, sponsors start taking notice as well. And that's amazing. It's so cool. So tell us about the first year. Yeah. What were some highlights for you? What were some exciting things for the league as well?
I think one thing that our league in particular did very, very well as a first year league, and that might come from we are the third Ultimate League to go through this, and we had a little bit of extra years of planning given the pandemic. But our stream quality, our film quality, I think was incredibly impressive for a first year league. And so that's something that I think us as a league, as a team, really take pride in, is that, yeah, the quality of our product that we got to put out was really amazing. And that was sort of combined with, there's an ultimate specific stream service that we were able to use for the format of season that we played around with that year. And so we were able to get kind of professional level streaming for our sport specifically, and the other teams that didn't use that organization, UltiWorld, they kind of rose to the occasion and were able to get something that was still really impressive to watch. So I think that's something that I think we can walk away from the season feeling really good about. It's that type of quality that got us a couple nods on SportsCenter top 10. I think it was just a successful season in that way, where it was fun to watch. As an organizer and just being a part of all of it, it was absolutely surreal to just see it all happen after 4 years in the making of planning and then organizing and getting everything together. Our first event for the season was, we had a home game weekend. So like our first, and we were the opening weekend of the league was a home game weekend in Arizona, and we hosted 4 games. So we entertained this sort of hybrid schedule in order to keep our season a little bit shorter, and in order to also entertain basically having sorry, do I need to move? No. Okay, cool. Great. So yeah, we were able to host a couple teams here, and we were trying to do this hybrid schedule in order to contend with some COVID concerns that were still lingering, and be able to have that sort of more expensive film quality. And so we had 4 games, 3 of which we were playing in, and having our community show up for that first weekend and just having that whole weekend go off without a hitch. An obvious hitch, is a hard weekend to put together, but that weekend itself was just so incredible to have 4 years in the making finally kind of come to fruition. Was amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, such a big deal, right? It's a huge accomplishment. What was it like to get your first like SportsCenter top 10? Like, what was the league buzz like when that happened?
Oh, huge, especially because it was one of our players.
Oh, cool.
So it was at one of our preseason events. And I think one of the most amazing things about Ultimate is the fact that it's a disc, not a ball. So it floats, and that creates these opportunities for really impressive highlight plays. And so you get, massive battles in the air, but also it floats and it hangs for a while. And so you get what we call layouts or bids, where people are diving for the disc. And we have a couple players on our team who are fantastic on that. And one of our players and organizers, Cody Lippincott, she's a manager with me, had this massive dive in one of our preseason events that got onto SportsCenter, and the entire league just was so blown up about it, which is awesome. Like all of the teams, I think, all joined together, and there was a second SportsCenter highlight from a different player on a different team, and all of the teams in the league at that point are just so excited to get that recognition that it's a full league feeling of excitement and accomplishment. So
I bet. Well, and I don't want to skip over the fact too that you talked about the streaming and how important that is. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of leagues suffer a little bit from not having quality. So kudos to y'all for really making that a priority and getting that together, because people want to watch, especially if it's going to grow across the country into places where you might have people interested, but they don't know really what it is or how to do it. Right. That's huge. Well, I mean, I'm super excited for second season coming up. What's some off-season stuff happening, and what are you looking forward to year 2?
Yeah, so we'll likely have our tryouts at the end of this year, and our season runs from March through May timeframe. I'm hoping that we can make it a little longer this second season. I think we're really excited to just have our ducks in a row a little bit more now. having never run a season before, there were so many things that I don't think we anticipated until you actually do it. Of, oh wow, booking flights right before, with the schedule, when you get the schedule done, and not knowing the roster until maybe right beforehand. Like, there were a lot of things that timing wise were just unknown until we got there. And so having all that information, having run a season, knowing how much it costs, I think is going to be huge for running a even smoother season next year. In the off season, we're trying to do a lot of the things that are hard to do during the season. So pulling in more of those sponsors, getting a lot of social content out there so that we can pull in those sponsors, doing some community outreach, getting some clinics in. We actually have a really wonderful partnership with our home stadium is a high school, Mountain View High School in Mesa, Arizona. And we have a wonderful partnership with them where we'll be running a high school team for them, sort of in exchange for us using their stadium. So that's just a really cool way that we were able to work out sort of this community agreement and start building Ultimate at a youth level in Arizona, which hasn't really been a big thing in Arizona. Arizona is not the most known area for Ultimate until more recently. So
that's fantastic. What a cool opportunity for those high school kids.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, that's awesome. Well, I've loved getting to chat, and I want to do a couple rapid fire questions and then tell folks where to follow. But I just, it's always amazing the people that I get to meet doing this podcast, and to know, you're part of a group that just saw something they wanted to make happen and they made it happen. I mean, I hope that you guys are able to take a second and really reflect and celebrate what you've done, because it's big and it's made an impact for, how many people are on a roster?
We have 30 total and we take 21 per game.
So, 210 people getting to have an opportunity they maybe didn't think they would before. That's huge.
Yeah.
So happy to support y'all and see what can happen in year two. But yeah, thanks for coming on. Are you okay with a couple rapid fire questions?
Fire away.
All right. Well, what's your favorite place that you've ever played a game?
I played a lot of international, for a lot of international teams. I've actually played in 4 different countries' national championships.
Wow.
But I played in a under 24 world tournament for Team USA in 2019, and that was in Heidelberg, Germany. And that was maybe one of the coolest places and experiences around Ultimate, because there was 2 weeks of Ultimate, 1 week of training, and then 1 week of the tournament itself, and in a really incredible place. I absolutely love Germany. I've got family over there, so that was a really cool spot to go.
That's awesome. Quick question, segue from that. Is the culture of Ultimate sort of like rugby? Like, at the end of the day, like, oh, we all go out and like celebrate that we're a part of the sport? Or is it kind of more like, oh, we're a team, we focus on our team?
I think there's a little of that camaraderie across the board. I mean, there's 50, 60 plus countries that play this sport. So it is pretty prominent internationally. And I think people are pretty team focused for the bulk of the tournament. But when it gets to the end, everyone gets really excited to all meet and hang out with each other. There's a really big culture around jersey trading. So frequently you bring a whole extra kit so you can trade your country's equipment for somebody else's. And so that's a big part of the culture as well. And that's I think a cool aspect of us all just really being excited for the mutual growth of the sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite practice drill to do?
I like one-on-ones. I'm a defensive player, so any type of drill where it's just me versus one other person vying for the disc is where I shine and where what I love the most.
Awesome. Who is the player that you looked up to when you were getting into the sport, and as you've been playing?
My partner is a player and a coach. I apologize, my dogs are playing in the room. He was a player until getting injured, and then became a coach following that. And he had always sort of been a huge influence on my playing career, and so I really looked up to him, not just as a player, but his involvement in the sport.
Awesome. Very cool. What is your favorite warm-up song?
Oh, it varies so much. Lizzo is a common theme, I think, and getting everyone
Amazing.
excited.
Amazing. All right. What's your favorite sports movie?
Goon.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Favorite sports team other than the Sidewinders? Because
Yeah, I was like, I say
obviously.
my own. Favorite sports team. I'm from New York originally, so I'm still, I think, a diehard New York fan. And it was football mostly, so Giants is
Awesome.
still loyal to them.
Very cool. All right. Two more. Who do you think is the greatest athlete of all time?
Uh Serena Williams.
There you go. All right. And if you can get tickets for life for any sport event, you get them every time the event happens, whether it's every 4 years of the Olympics or every year Super Bowl or whatever. What tickets for life are you getting?
Ooh. Winter Olympics. That's
Nice.
yeah, back to my ski racing roots. I would love to be able to see all that variety of sports.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you again for coming on. Tell folks where they can follow you and follow the Sidewinders and the league.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a website, ArizonaSidewinders.com. You could find us on socials, AZ_Sidewinders. We have a really awesome line of support women's sports gear that is going on sale for $5 off. You can find that on our website as well. So check that out. And the league is the Western Ultimate League. You can find them on socials at WL League, WL League. So find them out there and give us a follow and catch us in 2023.
Yeah, amazing. We will put all those links in the show notes and just really everyone tune in, support. Let's give these players and the front offices support that they deserve, because it's amazing what you're doing. So thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.